Working Cows Podcast, episode 116.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Conry, host of the Working Cows Podcast, here with another episode for you all. Really excited to share some thoughts that I've been processing since going to Wally Olson's marketing school and some other things that I've been thinking about. One of those is that I've been doing this for 2 years now. As of the first week in November, it's been 2 years since I started the Working Cows Podcast, and so I usually try to commemorate that with a solo episode and talk to you about some of the things that have been going on in my head. And I had an episode all planned out that I really wanted to share with you and an outline that I was going to use. And then I got a call from Holistic Management Canada and Organic Alberta, and they've asked me to come up and share some of the lessons that I've learned over 100 plus podcast interviews. And so I'm going to be there January 31st through February 2nd in Edmonton, or just outside of Edmonton, in Camrose, Alberta, Canada, speaking at the Holistic Management Canada 2020 conference, and it is also being done in conjunction with Organic Alberta. So day one, I think, is Organic Alberta on January 31st, and then day two on February 1st is Holistic Management Canada and Organic Alberta together. And the day that I'll be speaking is I'll be off first thing in the morning on Sunday, February 2nd, for the kicking off the Holistic Management Canada portion of the conference and sharing some things about unintended consequences of our management decisions and talking about that. So if you're around or interested in attending, I look forward to seeing you there. More information can be found on the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/116. I'll have links to the Holistic Management Canada website and the 2020 conference portion page of that website, specifically at workingcows.net/116. But some of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I've done a few episodes that were maybe on the edge for some people and received some negative feedback. And contrary to my better judgment, I try to be very accommodating and nice when I respond to those. It's always a temptation to just put in quotation marks, paradigm challenging practices, kind of the snarky response of, are you triggered, or are you having your feelings hurt by the paradigm challenging practices we're sharing, or are you questioning this particular paradigm challenging practice when you've been willing to entertain the others? And so I guess sometimes you see people have their paradigms challenged, and you can tell that their paradigms are being challenged because they almost laugh as a first reaction to the suggested potential practice being implemented. And so I think that sometimes we need to be, even if we feel that we're progressive or we're thinking outside the box, that we need to continue to stay open, that we're all really in a box, and we are creatures who like to have boundaries defined, and we like to be able to count on things being the same. And just a quick side note, I am, maybe 100 yards north, or not even that much, maybe 50 yards north of Highway 212, which is on the road to the Faith Livestock Sale Barn, and today is sale day, so there might be some unavoidable truck noises and jake brakes going by as they work their way to multiple thousand head calves and bred cow special going on today at the Faith Livestock. So if you hear that, I'm probably not going to take a lot of time to try and edit that out. It's just going to be there in the background. But anyways, we need to make sure that we're keeping an open mind and being willing to have our paradigms challenged, and being willing to allow people to push us outside of our comfort zone and out of our box, and let them say things that maybe we don't think are really acceptable right offhand. And there was a good discussion on the Egg State of Mind podcast today with Kathy Voth. That episode was just released today, and Jason and Kathy were talking on there about how your initial reaction might tell you something that maybe you need to take a little bit more time and try and understand where that person's coming from before you just react and fly off the handle. And I know that's not the internet way. The internet way is to say whatever comes to mind and say it fast and say it loud. And if you say it faster and louder than the other person, and you get more likes and you get more retweets and you get more shares than the other guy, then obviously you are right, because this is a democracy after all. And anyways, democracy presents its own problems, but that's probably another topic for another podcast, another paradigm challenge for another podcast. But one of the things that has been rolling around in my head since I was at the Wally Olson Marketing School, which is worth the time and effort to get there. I would recommend taking that in if you can. He's presenting a really different way of looking at the cattle industry and different way of thinking about how to manage cow depreciation specifically, but also talking to you about how to find the undervalued animal and make a smart purchase so that you are locking your profit in through the purchasing process, not hoping that you will have profit on the back end as you come to sell those animals in the future. So one of the things that he has mentioned a few times, and we talked about it on his episode, episode 112, I believe, we talked to him about finding a place to ranch where the rain is plentiful and where the grass and the growing season is longer. And he has mentioned it, at least on one of his episodes, maybe on both, that he was a fall calving ranch, and that he ran a fall calving ranch because he was still able to calve on green grass. Now, I don't know how many years it's been, if it's ever happened. We broke the record this year for the most moisture in western South Dakota, and most people can't remember a time when it was as wet as it has been this year. And some of the guys that are around me on prairie, native prairie land that they hay, got second cuttings for the first time in their lives. And so we had a unique year, and we had a really good year for growing grass, and it was green until into the middle of August, or even later than that. I don't specifically remember when it started to turn brown. We had a really good clover year, so that got rank and turned, and now it looks like there's been a fire that went through a lot of this country. But in any case, this is a spectacular year when we might have been green through some of the fall calving guys starting, but in most years we're brown by June 15th, or maybe the end of June at the latest. We're brown by then, and so we don't have green grass till fall calving would normally start, and so that is not really an option if you're trying to reduce your feed load. You want to try and calve as much as possible on green grass so that you're not trying to supplement that cow's nutrient requirements during the most taxing portion of her life. And so we look to find that nutrient curve in nature in our area and calve in sync with nature as much as possible. But in any case, one of the paradigm challenges I think that maybe we should start thinking about, especially for younger people, is, do you have to ranch where you grew up? Or can you maybe start to think outside the box and look for other places to ranch where the rain is more plentiful? And maybe even the bigger paradigm challenge than that is, can you move your ranch to a place where the rain is more plentiful? Can you go from a place where it's brittle and fragile environment and find a different place to ranch? And that is maybe not something that people take very seriously. But I think maybe that's just because we're in a box and we don't look outside that box, and we're going to try and make this ranch as profitable as it can be, and that's great and that's admirable, and go for it. And I think you should do it. But are you leaving more profit on the table because you're unwilling to consider the idea of moving the ranch somewhere where rain is more plentiful, where you would get more opportunity to have a longer growing season, change the calving date. Another thing that Wally talked a lot about. I'm trying not to give away too much of that school, and I feel like I can summarize it pretty succinctly, but that's probably because I don't fully understand all of it and that I need to go back and get more of it. It is very, very valuable. But one thing that he talked a lot about is that the fact that spring-born calves just continually hit a market that is down throughout their whole life cycle, that by the time they're ready to wean, nobody wants them. And by the time they are ready to go on to the next stage of growth, nobody wants them. And they keep hitting those low markets over and over and over again. And it's not that nobody wants them necessarily as much as it is the market is flooded with animals that are in that size. And I did ask a clarifying question. I said, what do you mean by spring-born calf? And he's talking February, March, spring-born calves that over and over again, people are either there's too many to choose from, there's too many in the market, or they're just not wanting those calves at that time, or they're not willing to pay for them because they can get others cheaper, or however you want to look at that. But that was one of the things that he continually prodded us on and encouraged us to consider as we were there in the class. And so anyways, one of the other things that he consistently brought up is, do you move the operation? Do you move the ranch somewhere else? And so there are some considerations there that we've brought up, that we've talked about, that we've mentioned here on the Working Cows podcast before, of people who ranch predominantly on leased land. That offers you some flexibility. You could take that ranch, even if you own the cows, you could take that ranching business somewhere else and do it somewhere else. And so maybe that's something to think about if you're starting out, is to try and operate on leased land as much as possible, so that if something comes, if some difficulty comes, you are mobile enough to move. And we've talked about that. At least I've referenced the Sims Ranch in McFadden, Wyoming, on a lot of leased land. And we've talked about that for sure with Dave Pratt when we did the disaster recovery episode, that he talked about being temporary, or maybe having a second ranch somewhere else that isn't as exposed to the risk of a drought or a fire as you are, or hopefully it's exposed to those things at different times, that the drought is not widespread enough to affect both ranches at one time, and you could pick up and move away for a period of time, a few months, a year, whatever it takes to make sure that you're not damaging that land. And if you ever get the chance to go to a Dave Pratt workshop, another one that's definitely worth going to. Sounds like even in retirement he's going to keep doing some of those things as he's able, and as Dallas is not able to fulfill those commitments, he's going to step in and do that. And he talks a lot about in there, well, if you're going to go with take half, leave half, that's silly, because if you have, and he visualizes it, but I'll just use a measurement, and every number is going to be wrong, so you can argue with that if you want to, but the idea remains the same, that if you take half, leave half of a 24-inch tall plant, that means you're taking it down to 12 inches. Well, if you're in a drought and the next year you come in there and you take half of a 12-inch plant, then you're taking it down to 6 inches. And so you're doing more damage by taking half in a dry year than you would in a wet year. And so hopefully you could have two ranches in different places that are less exposed, that reduces your exposure to the risk of drought or fire or other natural disasters that might affect the output of the ranch. And so there's my one paradigm challenging practice that I want you to consider. Is it time, or should you consider moving the ranch to somewhere else where you have more rain? And Greg Judy talks about this on his great YouTube channel. I don't know if Greg Judy experiences a lull anymore since he owns the cattle, but I'm looking forward to a lull in Greg Judy's schedule so that we can get together, and I'd like to talk to him some about his winter feeding strategy and some of the different things he's got going on. But he's really gone to very regular, he's really gone to putting out very regular YouTube videos, and I will share that on the show notes page as well at workingcows.net/20/116. I'm looking at the 2020 conference website and almost started to say 2020. I haven't done 2000 yet, but anyways, workingcows.net/116. I will share a link to Greg Judy's YouTube channel there, but he talks about how the things will happen faster. Good things on your soil will happen faster if you're getting more moisture. So is it worth considering moving to a new place where you might get more rainfall, and you could see these regenerative practices even pay off a little bit faster? And I'm just hesitating a little bit here because I am taking time to look at Greg Judy's channel and make sure he was still continuing to release those as regularly as he had been. I've been very busy last couple of weeks with a couple of conferences that I had to go to, and so I wasn't able to catch those as much as I had been able to. But anyways, he is still releasing them very regularly. They're short. You can 5 to 10 minutes at the most. You can grab those and just see them, and they're very practical, on the ground, looking at the soil, looking at the plant communities, looking at water and fence development. Good stuff. So check out Greg Judy's channel and make sure you're subscribed there and taking in that content as often as possible, because he says things like, if you're getting more rain, you will have a better return on your investment of water and fence infrastructure. These things are going to happen faster in your place than they will on the places where they're getting 15 inches of rain. Now, I am a proud Western resident. I live in what I would consider to be the West, maybe on the edge of it, maybe on the eastern edge of the West, but I consider where I live to be the West, and we are drier here, and I do anticipate it taking longer. Now, I have a calling here that I'm fulfilling, that I feel like I am where God wants me, and I'm going to stay here as long as He tells me to stay here. And for my wife's sake and for my family's sake, I hope that's for the rest of my life. But I don't ever get to make those decisions. I do try to be where He sends me to be. So in any case, I feel committed to this place, and I'm going to do the best with the resources that have been entrusted to me and try to manage them for the glory of God. And so I'm not necessarily considering this, but I just want to throw it out there as a discussion starter. Do you want to try and find a place where it rains more and invest there? That's paradigm practice, challenging practice number 1 for today. I only have one more, so not too much longer here, but I want to engage with you, engage in some discussions. So I'm going to start up a MeWe page for those of you who are not Facebook users, not Facebook lovers. I'm going to recreate the Working Cows mob there. There will also be the Working Cows mob for people who are Facebook users. And if you join the MeWe page, I'll do, instead of 2 weeks, I'll do a month. So basically from now until the end of the year, you'll be able to be in there without being a Patreon supporter, but jump in and support me for $1 a month on Patreon, and you can be in both the MeWe group and the Working Cows Facebook mob, whichever one you feel is best for you. So, but I want to engage with you through those channels in some discussions. What do you think about moving to a place where you get more rain? Is that really something that you should be considering more than you do now? Is that something that you should be thinking about a little bit harder than you are? Is it just one of those things you reject out of hand and you don't even consider it? You just keep on going in the area where you are? Are there good reasons to say I'm staying here? Are there good reasons to say I'm going to try somewhere else? So jump on there and engage in some discussion. For now, we're going to hear a little bit about what you can do to incorporate Beefmaster genetics into your herd. This episode is being brought to you by beefmasters.org. It's good to be joined today by Justin Williams of Jones Beefmasters of Savannah, Tennessee. And Justin, I'd just like to hear a little bit about how you see Beefmaster genetics benefiting commercial cow breeders from a heterosis perspective.
If an individual has primarily an Angus-based cow herd, and you put any other breed of bulls on there, you do not retain as much heterosis. Beefmasters will retain 64% heterosis on there, so that's whatever a commercial man or producer can do to gain more pounds of product off the same cow and same land. it's a great opportunity for the industry to utilize a different set of genetics.
In what specific ways are you seeing Beefmasters benefit people in a way that's different from other breeds, or in a way that's better than other breeds, as far as more than just pounds gained? What are some of the other benefits of the heterosis that they bring?
Like in our country here, these cattle, you got the heat tolerance built in on them, and so during the summer months, as the climates are changing a little bit, that in July and August in this country is pretty hot, and them cattle are still out there grazing and working and eating grass, and that goes back to the pounds. But you got that longevity of a female. The Beefmaster cow is just second to none, and the way they developed this breed and the 3-breed rotation, and how we've worked at it for years to continue, that's just the ultimate cow. And in my opinion, how they get out and work and hustle and continue to breed back. And so when you utilize that heterosis too, on like our commercial herd, we've got some half bloods, and the breed up's really good on them, the fertility's really good on them, and so all that'll play a role into the heterosis. And so I'd say longevity, heat tolerance, and fertility is 3 of the 4 big deals. And I covered weight gain earlier.
Sure. Very good, Justin. I thank you for your time today and appreciate your perspective. So now back to our discussion about paradigm challenging practices, and what we can do to make sure that we're staying open-minded and considering all of what we can do to have a more profitable ranching business. And the second thing that I wanted to say is, maybe you don't consider moving the ranch, but maybe it's time to consider moving the herd. And I think, I wonder if we couldn't recreate the effect of the massive roaming herds of bison if we were willing to partner with people in other places in the world and move herds back and forth. I know people who do this. I know people who move from Kansas in the winter months to South Dakota in the summer months. And I just wonder if there isn't an opportunity there to maybe own a herd together with somebody who lives in Oklahoma and ship the cows back and forth to somewhere in the north, somewhere in the south, somewhere where they get 15 inches of rain, but it's really good hardy grass in the summer that's good for putting pounds on animals, and then ship them back down to the south where they've had ability to stockpile massive amounts of forage through the summer, maybe even grazing that with a herd that is or a custom grazer, a stalker type operation, and then get off of it and leave a second cutting there for a stockpiled winter forage grazing opportunity. Is there something to be said for thinking about, at least considering moving the herd back and forth throughout the year? And again, jump into the MeWe group, jump into the Working Cows Mob Facebook group, and join in a discussion. Consider jumping in there now through the end of the year, and we will engage in a discussion about these things. But is there something to be said for taking advantage of those regions, for the best of what they have to offer and the best that they do for the time of year that they do it? There's certain things that I think you can accomplish on northern ranges in the summer and into the early fall that maybe you can't accomplish in the south. And so maybe there's an opportunity to ship cows back and forth and take advantage of that. What are the drawbacks? What are the disadvantages? Why should we not consider it? Is that a crazy idea? This is how we vet these ideas. We discuss them and we poke holes in them and we say, that's stupid, that will never work. And then we defend why that's stupid and that would never work. But maybe it's a networking opportunity to find an opportunity to make a mobile herd that isn't as exposed to risk because it's moving from one place to the other. And we see that happening on some level with with the calves that get sold out of the north, they probably work their way south and end up in a feed yard and end up in grow yards and end up in different things. But is there a way that we could take more advantage of the grasses that are growing at different times of the year in different places by moving maybe for a quarter or for 6 months to one region and then 6 months to the other, and try to figure out how to continue to be in the best place when the grass is best during certain times of the year. So those are just a couple of things that I've been thinking about. Again, thank you to Beefmasters for being a sponsor. Been really enjoying the opportunity to sit down with some producers and feature them on these episodes. And also thank you to the Global Ag Network. It was good to spend the weekend at the South Dakota Farm Bureau State Convention with Mike Pearson and get a chance to talk to some people about podcasts and show them how to jump on. And so if you want to share this with somebody, ranchingpodcast.com is the website. Ranchingpodcast.com is the website, and that forwards you to my episodes page with every episode on one page, and they can scroll through the 116 episodes and find one that is right for them. So go ahead and share that link with people that you know who might enjoy the opportunity, and I'll look forward to meeting some of you for the first time. My wife and I will be traveling to Edmonton in January to attend the Organic Alberta and the Holistic Management Canada annual conference. So looking forward to that opportunity. Again, jump in the Working Cows Facebook mob. Instead of a 2-week free trial, we'll go with a 1 month free trial through the end of the year, and jump in the newly created MeWe group for discussion there if you're opposed to Facebook, which you have every reason to be. And I don't blame you a bit. I just use it for my podcast and sharing pictures of massive snakes that I kill in my basement every once in a while. So if you missed that, there will be a link in the show notes page, workingcows.net/116. Going to try and get another episode out later this week. Thanksgiving bonus makeup episode for missing an episode a couple of weeks ago while I was at the Wally Olson Marketing School. So I'll try to get that out real soon, and we will see you as soon as possible with another episode of the Working Cows podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.